when we think of ancient Egypt, we think of desert, right? Camels, pyramids, right? Now, what have we learned recently? We know ancient Egypt, right? That's a Greek word. We know it was really called Tamari, beloved land. We know that was over here in Tamarika, right? Ancient Egypt was here in America. So, do we have pyramids over here? Yes. Do we have deserts over here? Yes. And did we have camels over here? That's a big yes. In fact, I will show you camels originated here in America.
With their wide feet to help them walk on shifting sands and their fatty humps to store energy, camels are famous for the adaptations that allowed them to flourish where most other large mammals would perish. But the fact is, camels didn't originally evolve in the desert at all. They didn't even evolve in Africa or Asia, where they live today. The story of the camel begins over 40 million years ago in North America.
All right, so let's just get into this, right? So again, I told you the camels are from the Camelidae family, all right? And it says here, molecular evolution of the family Camelidae, a mitochondrial DNA study by Helen F. Stanley, Miranda Catwell, and Jane C. Wheeler, Conservation Genetics Group, Institute of Zoology, Regent Parks, London, and Facultad de Medicina Veterinaria, Universidad de San Marcos, Lima, Peru, all right? So, says here, introduction, the family Camelidae, which originated in North America. Again, what? Originated where? In North America. So wait a minute. I thought the Garden of Eden was over there in Iraq. Mesopotamia over there, you know. What's going on here? During the Eocene, 40 to 45 million years ago. Now comprises 2 Old World tribe Camelini and 4 New World tribe Lamini, species with the division between the Lamini and the Camelini dating to approximately 11 millennia ago. Migrations to South America and Asia occurred approximately 3 million years ago. So they just got them 3 million years ago. We've been had camels here way longer than they had them over there. All right. And who's to say they weren't here still? All right. When they came back. All right. So again, they originated in North America and they migrated to South America and Asia. So what is this telling us? Hmm. And both the Camelini and Lamini subsequently became extinct in North America. All right. So again, I'm gonna put all these links up for you and in the video description, so you can go ahead and read the whole thing.
Possible member of the camel family is Protylopus, which appears in the fossil record about 45 million years ago, in what were once the rainforests of southwestern North America. Today, the Southwest makes you think of red rocks and cactus, but during the Eocene epoch, it was lush, balmy, and very rainy. Protylopus was well suited to this environment because it was an artiodactyl, an even-toed hoof mammal whose members today include antelope, deer, and pigs. So you might say Protylopus looked more like a tiny deer than a camel because, unlike today's camels, it walked on 4 toes, all capped with hooves. And its toes are what took scientists by surprise when the first Protylopus fossil was found in Utah in 1898. At the time, the flat-footed stance of the camel was assumed to be a primitive condition that other artiodactyls lost as they adapted to living in more open environments. In fact, the suborder Tylopoda, which includes camels and their extinct relatives, was named for the wide, cushioned feet that scientists thought all camels always had. But it turned out that the splayed toes that make modern camels so good at traversing the desert weren't a feature that camels started off with. They were a later adaptation. And Protylopus also didn't have a lot of the other traits that we associate with members of the camel family, like long limbs and long flexible necks. In fact, Protylopus is so strange that it's sometimes put in a family with other kind of bizarre, not quite camel creatures called the Oromoricidae. So you'd be forgiven for not seeing the family resemblance. But Protylopus is still considered one of the earliest known tylopods because it had many of that group's more subtle but defining traits, like having incisor teeth in the upper jaw and sharp tusk-like teeth in the lower jaw. And speaking of its teeth, there's one more weird thing about this very tiny camel. A closely related group of artiodactyls called ruminants have 4-chambered stomachs that help them digest grasses. But Protylopus and its descendants have had to make do with less efficient 3-chambered stomachs. So Protylopus was more of a browser, preferring a diet of soft leaves and fruit over grass, a preference that will play a big role in this evolutionary story. Now, little Protylopus didn't make it out of the Eocene, but it had a cousin with whom it shared an ancestor, and it was better suited to the mosaic of forests and grasslands that was starting to transform North America. That cousin was the slightly larger Pobrotherium, which showed up about 37 million years ago. Pobrotherium had long, slender limbs, good for running in more open terrain, but like Protylopus, it still walked on hooves rather than toe pads. And this camel did very well for itself indeed. Fossils of Pobrotherium have been found across western North America and in a greater range of habitats, from wooded grasslands to shortgrass prairies. But we can tell by its teeth, specifically its shorter molars, that it still relied on leaves as its main food source, rather than grass. Now, Pobrotherium disappears from the fossil record about 33 million years ago, and like Protylopus, that marked the end of its lineage. But other lineages continued to thrive as the shrubs and trees of the Oligocene turned into the grassy, open Miocene.
All right, so now we're here in this website, part of the PBS channel, says Wildlife Journal Junior, says Camelidae, camels, llamas, alpacas, and vicuñas. Although there are no living species of Camelidae family in North America today, the fossil records, again, the fossil records, real science, right, shows that the family started and evolved there. The camelid family started, origin. We're talking about garden of Eden. We're talking about the first land out of the water. All right? Where animals eventually evolved. It started. All right? The Camelidae family is one of them. Camel. An icon of Egypt, right? That was over here. Ancient Egypt, Tamari was over here. Members of this family migrated to South America and Asia. They went to Asia from here, over land bridges, they say. They don't know this stuff. They don't know if it was from the Bering Bridge or if the land was already attached, if it extended all the way to Asia. They don't know. They guess. All right. But they know that it originated here because of the fossil records. All right.
In the Miocene, camels reached their peak of diversity when nearly 30 genera roamed all over North America. In fact, camels at this time were so successful and abundant that they're one of the most common herbivores found in Miocene fossil beds. This explosion in diversity saw the development of 4 different subfamilies, including the one that led to all modern camels, Camelinae. And while these families had a lot of differences, they also had one major thing in common. They didn't walk on tiptoes anymore. For instance, fossils of the long-necked Camelus have been found in deposits from this time from California to Florida. And, in addition to its kind of giraffe-like features and its impressive height, this camel is notable because it's one of the first to have feet like those of modern camels. While early camelids walked on the tips of their hooked toes, Camelus walked on the padded bottoms of its feet. It had relatively short toes, with ankle bones that splayed out at the base, suggesting that its toes spread apart and were supported by large pads. And these new feet were a great adaptation for its new environment, because Camelus browsed on the open savanna, a lot like a modern giraffe does, where trees were fewer and farther between, so it had a lot of ground to cover in its search for food. But the way this camel looked and lived also brought about another innovation. It gave rise to a whole new way of walking.
I'm in the U.S. National Library of Medicine, National Institutes of Health, it says here. And this is an article that says the history of old world camelids in the light of molecular genetics. All right. It says old world camels have come into the focus as sustainable livestock species, unique in their morphological and physiological characteristics and capable of providing vital products even under extreme environmental conditions. The evolutionary history of dromedary and Bactrian camels traces back to the Middle Oligocene around 40 million years ago, when the ancestors of the Camelus emerged on the North American continent. Again, where? On the North American continent, not Asia, not Africa.
Sometime in the Miocene, Camelus crossed the Bering Land Bridge into Asia, changing the course of camel history. The earliest fossils of this camel have been found in Nevada, dating back about 12 million years. But by 7 million years ago, this intrepid explorer had already made it as far as Spain. Its fossils have been found throughout Europe and Asia, in places like China, Russia, Turkey, and Romania. But perhaps the strangest place it's been found is on Ellesmere Island in northern Canada, where a 3.4 million-year-old fossil was reported in 2013. Needless to say, that's a strange place to find camel fossils because it's very, very far north. So far north that at 78.5 degrees latitude, it's in the Arctic Circle. Now, the Arctic was warmer 3 million years ago than it is today, but if Camelus stayed there year-round, it still would have lived in boreal forests with deep snow, experienced temperatures below freezing, and endured 6-month-long winters with little sunlight. And yet, the very same adaptations that allowed Camelus to survive the unforgiving conditions of deserts and grasslands may also have been what allowed it and other camels to possibly survive in the Arctic. For instance, their humps would have served them well during those long winters. Their large, furry bodies would have retained heat longer. and their broad padded feet that work so well on sand could have functioned like snowshoes. And it was this lineage of hardy pioneers that eventually brought us the camels we know today. Camelus, the genus of modern camels, was the first camelid to evolve outside of North America, and it and its descendants are what are now known as the Old World camels.